Thank you, Chair, Professor Muni, and I also thank the organizers for inviting me here to present my views on Beyond SAARC, Reenergizing Sub-Regional Cooperation in South Asia. As Professor Muni mentioned earlier, from terrorism to traditional security to disaster management, and now I'll be talking about cooperation, rather sub-regional cooperation in South Asia. The paper basically emphasizes on sub-regional cooperation in the context of Article 7 of the SAARC Charter, which talks about how more than two countries, 3 countries or more countries can cooperate with each other without everyone, all the SAARC members, agreeing on a certain cooperation. And this will actually help if one country wants to veto cooperation in South Asia. And through sub-regional cooperation, member states can move ahead on a common path of economic growth, infrastructure development, I think connectivity, which is a very important point in the context of South Asia. And the paper will be basically in 2 sections. I'll be just talking about non-traditional security issues, briefly touching upon it, then talking about the evolution of SAARC and how it failed to actually fructify, and how sub-regional cooperation can actually be a solution to the problem. When we talk about non-traditional security issues, again, we go back to the realist perception, which talks about security in the context of threats from outside the borders as well as military in nature. And if we look at the period of the Cold War, then actually by perpetuating what we called is balance of terror, it actually succeeded in having this Western strategic definition of security perpetuating for a very long time. However, with the technological and communication revolutions, rise of non-state actors, and all this dichotomy between the issues of so-called high politics and low politics, between domestic issues and foreign policy, they actually started mitigating. And this also questioned the relevance of the realist perspective on security. And of course, we have non-traditional security or non-conventional or non-military threats to security, which include economic, environmental, transnational organized crimes, drug trafficking, and terrorism. In fact, I was talking other day with one of our fellow delegates that how after the end of the Cold War, when the situation actually changed, people started talking about economic wars from Cold War. And now they are talking about water and energy wars, So that is something which may, that's what the paper will be looking at. Now, when we talk of these security measures, then here I would like to just quote a definition of how non-traditional security issues can actually require regional cooperation in the sense. This definition by Ralph Emmers, and just to quote part of it, these transnational security issues, they are transnational in nature. That's why, non-traditional security threats, they are transnational in nature, and they need not be purely domestic. They are more towards the interstate, and they are transmitted very rapidly due to globalization and revolution in the means of communication and technology. And state response to it through the national perspective is very inadequate, so they require transnational cooperation for the survival, and they do not confine themselves only to state sovereignty or territorial integrity. Rather, they talk about survival of the people and their well-being. And in this context, we can talk about SAARC, which when was initiated, then the whole rationale behind it was the countries of South Asia, they are bound together due to their historical traditions, the social, ethnic, and cultural similarities in some ways, or historical legacies, and at the same time, many successful regional cooperation efforts at that time. They were also acted as a factor which actually helped in culmination of SAARC. Though most of us who are aware of SAARC know that there were different perceptions among the member states and different reasons for joining SAARC at that time. However, coming to the actual how SAARC actually worked, it adopted a functional approach of cooperation, and we had many agreements, including SAPTA, and which was actually signed in 1993. fructified in 1995, it was considered a major step towards moving towards cooperation in South Asia. And the initial negotiations were based on product-to-product basis. However, it did not actually culminate in that kind of a trade increase as was expected. And because most of the time the member states, either they were not actually trading in the products that they offered concessions on. Second level of these, again, we had more better concessions were offered, increase the level of trade. However, again, it did not achieve the desired level. And the major issues are, of course, informal trade across the borders. But again, the reasons for that is the higher tariff, and also what we call is non-tariff barriers in the form of quantitative restrictions. In 2004, we moved towards SAPTA, that is South Asian Free Trade Area. However, again, if you look at the statistics, then the trade between the members has not reached the desired level, and it's about 10% of the total regional state, roughly around that. Apart from the economics, we also have many other agreements among the member states. One is, of course, SAARC Convention on Suppression of Terrorism. Another was disaster management, which the speaker just before me has spoken about. These agreements, apart from these, we also have many studies which were undertaken on different issues, including the study on the energy requirement in South Asia. We also had the SAARC Committee on Economic Cooperation, which actually comprised of the Commerce Secretaries of SAARC member countries. They recognize that inadequate infrastructure in SAARC area or the South Asia is one of the drawbacks or is one of the hindrance in enhancing the trade. Apart from that, we also have a couple of other agreements, SAARC Social Charter and many more. We also have SAARC Development Fund in Thimphu, SAARC South Asian University in New Delhi itself. We also have SAARC Arbitration Council in Islamabad and, of course, SAARC Regional Standards Organization in Dhaka. SAARC Agreement on Trade in Services, it also fructified in 2012. Apart from that, many other initiatives unilaterally by some of the countries. However, these could not actually result in the desired potential, achieving SAARC desired potential of being a region which can cooperate. And usually SAARC is considered as what we call usually a talking shop, or perhaps which has not been able to. And it is also said that SAARC as an area or as a region, which obviously does not have the defined boundaries due to different perceptions, does not have what it takes to be a regionally coherent or regionally cooperative state, and is the least integrated state in the world. That has been argued a couple of times. We have recent examples of SAARC satellite being launched by ISRO in 2017, and all the countries barring one is using that. And of course, we also have SAARC Motor Vehicles Agreement, which has to be between the four countries, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India and Nepal, BBIN, in order to move ahead. So that means we do have many issues which did not help SAARC reaching its desired level of the potential. And of course, we know political tensions and the different perceptions of the nation states regarding different agreements that have been taken place. So in such a scenario, sub-regional cooperation can be a way out, because just by saying that South Asia lacks integration capabilities or elements, that will definitely not solve the problem, because we do have these non-traditional security threats which are for real, and you need to cooperate to deal with many of them. In such a scenario, sub-regional cooperation, it comes as a crucial intervention. As I just mentioned in the beginning of my paper, under Article 17 of the SAARC Charter, the members can cooperate. The biggest achievement or biggest plus point we can say about sub-regional cooperation is that they are more, or they are less formal in nature, rather than regional integration, which is more kind of institutionalized. We have the example of Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and Nepal Growth Quadrangle, BBIN, which follows a project-led approach to cooperation in the core economic areas of multimodal transport and communications, energy, trade and investment facilitation, tourism, optimal utilization of natural resource endowments, and environment. And these projects are supportive of and complementary to the national plans of the concerned states. BBIN has entered into an agreement to facilitate transportation of people and goods across the borders of these 4 member states, only with necessary connectivity and infrastructure, because the members have realized that only through the connectivity and infrastructure development, better means of transport, they can actually work on other areas, including energy and power transmission among the members. We also have another example, which is South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation Program. It brings together Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. And again, it's a project-based association with a view to enhance regional prosperity and create economic opportunities for the people of the sub-region. It also aims to build multimodal cross-border transport networks that speed up the time and reduce the cost of transportation among the member states. It furthers this South Asian Sub-Regional Cooperation. It also aims at enhancing better energy security through infrastructure development among the member states, because sub-regional power trade will actually reduce the cost and dependence on imports. And Asian Development Bank supports the initiatives and serves as the secretariat of this grouping, or informal grouping, or rather I would say sub-regional grouping. It also has an operational plan 2016-2025, which is a comprehensive plan, and it contains potential projects which can fructify over the next 10 years. And this program basically works on 4 important dimensions. One is enhancing physical connectivity among the member states through, of course, as I just mentioned, multimodal transport system. The second is talks about enhancing electricity trade among the member states, so that they can have more expanded and diversified energy supply to meet their energy requirements. And third point they talk about is promoting synergies, which mean economic corridors, which have been developed or which will be in the process of developing among within as well as among the different states. ADB Asian Development has already approved 9 infrastructure projects costing about $2.4 billion American dollars as a part of this plan of 2016-2025. And we do have different projects under these. In fact, in 2017, ADB has awarded the best project to a railway connectivity project developed under this program, that is at the Akhura and Lakham double track project. I hope I have named it correctly. As well as there's another project in Nepal, which talks about improving connectivity within Nepal and, of course, between Nepal and its neighbors, and building an alternative route, between Sunsri and Sub-3 districts, which connects east-west highway across the Kosi River, And also now just coming to the conclusion. I would say that it's very important, and it's very high time that cooperation in South Asia reaches its desired level. And because we do have the potential in South Asia to take care of many of our issues, whether it's energy or environmental issues. And if SAARC is not able to move ahead, that doesn't mean that South Asian countries cannot cooperate. So they can cooperate, and sub-regional cooperation can be a solution to that problem. I'll not say it can mitigate all the problems that South Asia has, but definitely it can be a one way of enhancing infrastructure facilities, like means of transportation can be better. But obviously, it does require, like all other projects, it does require a more proactive approach among the member states. Thank you.